If you said the external data tab, then you are correct. So external means outside. It allows to bring information from outside files and import them into Access. So I'm just going to show you real quick. We are going to be bringing in this superhero database product table into our database. So right now, it's an Excel format, Excel spreadsheet. We have our super item, cost per item, and lead developer on it. So let's say this is important information that we need to bring in our database, and we don't want to have to type in the columns and all the information again. We can just import this. So you should have downloaded this file from Google Classroom. If you haven't already, you can pause the video and download it. And you want to make sure that it just stays in your downloads. You do not have to open it up. If it's open, it may not import properly. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of it. So on the external data tab, we're going to look to see what type of file we're going to be bringing in to our database. So if we're going to be bringing information in, that means we're going to be importing it. And so we are going to be looking at where it says new data source. Okay, so we're going to be bringing this information in from an Excel file. So we'll select Excel. We want to make sure that we look at this carefully. We're going to browse for the file name. It's in the downloads. So we're going to be looking for the one. I'm just going to type in superhero database product table. Okay, so we do want to import the source data into a new table in the current database. So it's going to make a new table for us when we import this information in. And we do want our first rows to contain column headings. If I uncheck this, you can notice how all that information just becomes a part of the table. So if we choose this option, it's like we're saying we're going to create the column headings, but we already had those on there. So we are going to keep this selected, and you can see how it sets our column headings up for us. So then we can click next. You may see other options that you would have to change in the future, like if you had to change data type, etc. We're not going to make any changes here, so we can go ahead and click through. We are going to click choose my own primary key. So we want our primary key to be the super item because no two super items can be the same. And then we're going to click next, and we're going to name this product table. Once we've named it, we can go ahead and push finish. And we do not have to say the steps. Click close, ta-da, just like that. Our product table has been imported. So it makes it super easy for us to import information that we need from spreadsheets so that we can have it all in one database. So if we needed to edit this information or bring this information in on any other tables, etc., it'd be super easy to do so. Also, if you needed to here, you could also click inside of the fields. You can change your field sizes, etc., if necessary. Okay, so let's check out the next step. All right, so now we're on the last page. All right, so we entered all the information that we need to know about our arch nemesis, our superheroes, and our product table. So now let's look at why are we storing this information? What can we do with this information in our database? So let's start out by doing a query. And what is a query according to what we talked about earlier? Yes, so a query is asking Access a question and we're getting back specific results. And the way I remember that, query starts with Q and question also starts with Q. So where do we go anytime that we want to create something or create an object in Access? Correctamundo, we do go to the Create tab. So let's go to the Create tab. Notice on here, we can create from a query wizard or we can use query design. So query wizard, if you click on it, if you look on the caption, it kind of guides you through the options that you want in your query, but query design allows us to put exactly what we want to ask onto a design, and then we can go to data sheet view and look at what the results are. So I just clicked on create query design. So once we're in query design, you should see where it says show table. It's going to show us all the tables that we have created. It's going to show us all the fields that we can pull from those tables. So on the next video, we're going to look at how we can take this information and create a question from it. Okay, so the first thing you need to think about when creating a query is where is my information going to come from? So let's say that we want to create a query that returns results back to us that have just the superhero name, the special power, and weakness field. So which table will we use? Yeah, so all the information can be found on the superhero table. So we're going to select superhero table and then click add. So you can see all of our fields that would be added, that we could add to this query. So we're going to include the superhero name, their special power, double click, and then also we're going to include their weakness. So you'll notice that there are options for sorting. So like ascending and descending, like we talked about in class. You can also check the box. It can still show results for those, or it can still bring up the superhero names, but not necessarily show the fields whenever you run your results on there. We do want to be able to see all of the fields when we run our results. So in order to see your results, you're going to find the red exclamation mark on the design tab that says run. Boom, and then we can see our results. So we selected our specific fields, superhero name, special power, and weakness. And so right now, this one's called query 1. We can go to the save button, and we're going to call this query SP1. Okay. So now you can see how it added to the objects area in our navigation pane, and you can see that we have a query called SP1. Okay, so let's go to create another query. This time, we want to see all the locations of our superheroes, just the locations of our superheroes in ascending order. So where do we go to start our query? So we're going to go to the Create tab, Query Design. Which table are we going to use to see the locations of superheroes? Absolutely, we're going to use a superhero table. Add, so we just want to see locations. We're going to choose the location field. Close that. Location field, what do we need to change if we want to see it in alphabetical order? Right, so sort, which one is it going to be? Ascending, yes, is A to C, A to Z. And then what do we do whenever we're ready to see the results? You got it, run for it, push the run button, and this shows us our locations in alphabetical order, just like that. So it makes it easy for us to access specific information, get specific results back, and then we can also sort and filter that information in the ways that we would like to. We're going to push the save button, and we're going to call this one SP2. We're going to do one more query. This query is going to be just a little bit different. We're going to use something that is called a wildcard. So let's go back to the Create tab. On the Create tab, we're going to go to Query Design. This time for this table, we're going to create a query that includes the superhero name, gender, and arch nemesis field for all superheroes whose names start with S. So you can use a wildcard for words or names, phrases, etc. that start with certain letters by using the asterisk, which is a wildcard. So if we just want to find superhero names who start with S, we're going to go to the superhero table. We're going to choose superhero names. We're also going to choose gender, arch nemesis, and so if you look down here on our query, where our options are, we have a row that's called criteria. If I just want to see the superhero names that start with S, I'm going to type the letter S, but then I also have to include my wildcard, which is the shift and the A key, the asterisk, and that's going to represent the rest of the name. So this tells Access the name's going to start with S, and then the asterisk represents the rest of the name. So now I'm ready to see my results to see if it's going to return back the superheroes' names who start with S. I'm going to click Run. That is correct. So I had 2 superhero names who start with S. So this might be useful, like if you have patients or clients, students with certain names or specific things that you need to search for, and that's called a wildcard. So once we get that query put in, we're going to save, and this one is called SP3. And click OK. Okay, so just a couple more steps here. The last thing that we're going to do is a report and a form. So we're going to go back to the Create tab. So for a report allows you to include field names from specific objects, and it can create all information that you want to put specifically. So for example, let's say we want a report of our superhero table, and we want to be able to print this information out. We can choose the report button, which will just create a basic report of all the field names for our superhero table, or we can do report design, which will allow us to select the fields from that table. So we're just going to choose the report button. and it automatically includes all the tables or all the fields from this particular table, and then we can easily print out the information from this report. So it gives us all of our field names neatly, and we can just print it out. The last thing that we're going to create is a form. So a form allows us to see all the fields for one record at a time. So in order to do a form, we can simply push, you got it, the form button. I'm going to click back on superhero table. We can simply go to the form button, choose form, ta-da. So this will be all the information for Black Panther. If we click the back arrow, the next arrow, that was the first one. We click the next arrow, this will be all the information for Black Widow. So if somebody came up to us and they were saying, oh, we need information just about the Hulk, we could go to our form, we could print out just the information about the Hulk for our form. So with our database, you know that we have all of our objects open. We do need to make sure that we make sure our objects are saved, and then we can close out of the database itself. So I'm going to click the X. I want to make sure that I do save my superhero form, and I can just leave it as superhero. You'll see it as a form down here. I'm going to close out of my report here. Click yes, I do want to save my report. It'll list my report down here as well. And then everything else should already be saved. Oh, it's going to ask me to save it again. I can just click yes, and then I can close out of everything else. Yes to anything that wasn't saved. And then I can just double check by using my save button if necessary. So now everything is closed out on my database, but if for some reason I need to go back into that database and work on something, I could always go to my pane over here, and I can just double click on an object and it'll open it back up for me. So databases are really helpful for us to be able to store information about people, places, things, products, etc. Well, not things, I was saying nouns, but you can also do queries that allow us to ask specific information or specific questions to get specific results back. And so, it's easy for us to look at this information and say, oh, we just got a few superheroes, but what if we had all the superheroes listed out in the world? It may not be as easy for us to find all the superhero names who start with S. And then, of course, being able to create our forms and our reports quickly. So Access is really helpful for us to be able to store information and retrieve information in various ways